First, what issues are most important to you throughout the field of social work?
Oh, well, social justice is a very general, broad category, but that's where my passion lies. I think that there are many people who have been marginalized, who face discrimination on a daily basis, who need our help to become fully franchised members of our society. And
Why did you decide to go into the field of social work?
well, I'm a member of a couple different marginalized communities. I've experienced discrimination, prejudice, um, mistreatment. As I got older, I became politically involved in a lot of different movements, the anti-war movement during the Vietnam War, protests against U.S. involvement with Kruger Islands from South Africa, women's movement, that kind of thing. I started to realize that my passion was to work on a much more personal level, a micro level, and that in order to be truly effective, that I would need a social work degree to do the kind of work I was really interested in doing. So,
As a student and a member of the NASW, how do you promote diversity and social justice?
well, talking with people, being active in my classroom, dispelling mythologies, challenging people's biases. I also have been mentoring recovering alcoholics for over a quarter of a century, uh, using a strength-based approach. I did that even before I knew what that was called. All I knew was that these were people who had difficulty with self-esteem, who had been marginalized, who had been stigmatized, and that they needed someone to encourage and support them and to help them realize they have a right to be themselves and that they're no different than anyone else. They just simply have this extra challenge. And then I got involved with the transgender community. Became a member of 3 different support groups, and one of them, the founder of Gender Explorers, the longest continuous running transgender peer support group in Michigan, had some medical problems, could not continue to facilitate that group, and asked me to take over. It was supposed to only be temporary, but it turned out to be more than that. I've been facilitating since early in 2014, and I think for me personally, I can be more effective on this kind of micro clinical level.
That's awesome. Do you have any advice for other students studying social work?
Well, the number one is to be a sponge, to absorb everything, not just in the classroom. Every experience that I've had has been a learning experience. Let every experience teach you. The other thing, and I think this is critically important for social workers especially, is self-care. I know that we talk about this a lot. I've heard a lot about it in classrooms, but it's the kind of thing that once you're in the field, I've seen it over and over and over again, that self-care becomes the low priority, becomes the thing that, oh, I'll do if I have time and energy to do it, and of course we never do. So it has to be placed into that category of things that must be done. I'm a writer. It's my passion. I write fiction. I belong to a writer's peer critiquing group. One of the ways that I do self-care for myself is I write and I go to my writers group and we critique each other's work, which may sound kind of like school for creative writing, but I don't see it that way. It recharges my batteries rather than drains me. But that's just me. I mean, everybody has their own thing that they're passionate about, ways they have fun, ways they relax, things that recharge them.
How do you plan to use this scholarship to advance the mission and values of the social work profession?
I live about 1% above the federal poverty line on a fixed income, Social Security. At my age, I'm not going to go into the workforce again. I worked for well over 40 years at menial jobs. I'm pretty much done with that. So, without Pell Grants and without scholarships, I would not be in school. It would be impossible for me. This scholarship in particular has helped ease the burdens. It's allowed me to relax a little bit, not worry as much about how am I going to make ends meet, how am I going to pay for my books. Tuition is pretty much already taken care of, but it's all those extra incidentals. But the kinds of things I was stressing out until I learned I was the recipient of this year's scholarship. And it's like, oh, that's where the money's going to come from. Okay. So it's indirect, but it still applies because it helps me to stay in school. I will get my degree, and once I've got my degree and I can start working in the field, I can be directly active in supporting social justice issues, working on a micro-clinical level, one-on-one and with small groups. And it's in that way that I plan to contribute.
Well, that's amazing. Thank you, Christina.
You're welcome.